is all over the place. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm so excited today for this Wine Connections chat. You know, one of the best things about wine is the human connections that it helped make, whether it's going to a vineyard with your girlfriends for the weekend, or meeting friends. I've met friends through wine, through Facebook pages, or becoming friendly with members of Congress. You know, wine, I think, is a great human connector, and something that we always need, but that we need particularly right now. So I'm really looking forward to my guest today, Congressman Mike Thompson, that I've known for a couple years now. We were supposed to talk last Friday, right? But I was a little frazzled. You know, the election was up in the air and just couldn't get my head in the game. So I'm excited, and congratulations to you for your, re-election to your 12th. I think I said to Alex it was your 7th, but your 12th.
Nadine, we've been friends for more than a couple of years, because you just told me that your daughter, your youngest child, is 4 years old.
Right.
And I knew you. We were friends, and I knew you before you even started dating, for Christ's sake.
I know. No, it's been great. And you've been so supportive of me. You know, every time you come into Charlie Palmer and you come in with Eric Beckstoffer or whoever, like, this is the best sommelier in the town. And as a young somm and someone starting out, you just gave me a lot of confidence, and it really, really, meant a lot. And
it was very accurate. You're so knowledgeable on wine. You're so interested in it, and you were just a dream to work with. And I've seen you operate in the Palmer lane, and people would ask questions about wine. They tell you what they want to drink. You'd steer them right to the perfect bottle for them. So your knowledge and your talent, your skill, and your dedication and interest to wine really showed clear.
Awesome. You're officially my new hype man. I don't know if you know what a hype man is. You're it. All right, everyone. Let me tell you a little bit about Mike. He represents the 5th District in California, which encompasses part of Napa and Sonoma. Is part of Lake County as well, or is it Napa and Sonoma?
Yeah. I have all of Napa, and I have part of Sonoma, Lake, Contra Costa, and Solano County.
Okay, I didn't realize Contra Costa as well. Mike is co-founder and chair of the Congressional Wine Caucus and the Veterans Congressional Ventures Caucus as well. A veteran himself, a Vietnam vet, in the 173rd Airborne Brigade, where he earned the Purple Heart. He was the first Vietnam vet to be elected to the California State Senate, where he served for many years before becoming a member of the U.S. House of Representatives. What was that in '99? What was your first year in office?
Yeah, I was elected to the Congress in 1998, sworn in 1999.
It's fun. That's about when I started in the restaurant industry. You know, I opened Bistro Beast also on Capitol Hill in '97. You know, I had a background in social work and had every intention to going back to that, and then just got bitten by the wine bug and the restaurant bug. Mike is a father, a husband, a grandfather, a lover of wine, and as you can see, has a stash. Well, you're in Napa right now, not in DC. Has a small stash of wine in his office. I always joke around with people and say Mike's one of the good guys on the Hill. But actually I've always worked in restaurants kind of around Capitol Hill, Signatures, Beast, Charlie Palmer, and a lot of great people in those halls that go into work every day and just work to make our lives better. One of the things I love about Mike is the same thing I like about wine. It's balance. To me, some of the best wines are in balance and made with integrity. I think you're a balanced leader. You're a blue dog Democrat. Is that that's still a thing? You're an avid sportsman, an advocate for hunting, but also a leader in Congress in terms of, trying to get common sense gun laws passed. You've been endorsed by the Sierra Club, and also, work really hard to end animal cruelty. So, I really definitely see a parallel there between balanced wines and your service. So thanks a lot. Thanks again for talking with me. 2020 has been a year, and I know you're you're a busy person. The last, my last big wine dinner at Charlie Palmer was a dinner celebrating Napa. If you remember, we opened 1958 George Latour. We opened 88 Stony Hill Chardonnay from Magnum, that had been knocking around the restaurant, and I was sure it was past its prime. And we opened it, and it was stunning. And you told us that you were born at Stony Hill. Can you share a little bit about that story?
Well, my paternal grandparents lived on a ranch in St. Helena, and they grew grapes. Matter of fact, the vineyard is still there. My best friend's family bought it later on. Okay. He's passed on now. The family still owns it, but it's a Cabernet vineyard within the city limits of St. Helena, and it's on the northwestern side of St. Helena. And the grapes from that vineyard are used in the Honig Vineyard Select Bartolucci Cabernet. Okay. And it makes a fantastic wine. So my father had that background. He was in the service during World War II. And when he came out, Fred and Eleanor McRae had just bought their property north of St. Helena on the west side. And they hired him to be their vineyard guy. Okay. So he went to work up there when he got out of the service. And they did a deal. He really didn't want to be in agriculture. He wanted to be a home builder. So he ran the ranch for a number of years, and Fred McRae made a deal with him that if he built their house and their winery, he would buy him all of his tools and pay for him to go through all of the testing that it takes to get a contractor's license. So the McRae house and the Stony Hill winery were built by my father. Wow. And he built that, then he left and he went on to be a contractor. Excellent. The McRae family, it's recently sold, but the McRae family are still very close. Matter of fact, Peter and Melinda McRae live right around the corner from me in St. Helena, and we still see them a lot. And just a great family. Eleanor McRae was the co-chair of my first campaign when I first ran for the state senate. Wow.
And they were threatened by the recent fires, right? But I think they fared okay.
Yeah, that's correct. The glass fire, the last fire that hit us pretty hard, got very, very close to them and burned a lot of acreage in that region.
Awesome. Well, that was probably about 100 years ago. Most people are born in hospitals. I'm teasing you. But your wife, Nancy, does she work at the Napa, Janet, I'm sorry, Napa or St. Helena Hospital? Tell me a little bit about what she does.
She works at the St. Helena Hospital. Okay. That's the hospital where I was born, and then before they took me home to Stony Hill. My brother was born there. One of our kids was born there. One of our grandchildren were born there. My mother and father were born there. So it's been an important spot in St. Helena history for a long time. She's been off work because that same fire that threatened Stony Hill burned real close to the hospital, burned a number of homes down that are close to the hospital, and destroyed their water system. So they've been trying to rebuild that water system and get the hotel clean, or the hospital cleaned up, so they can go back to work there.
So it's closed.
She's been off work. It's been closed. She's been going in, helping to inventory material to prepare for the reopening. And she's been driving over to Lake County because St. Helena Hospital has a facility in Lake County also. So she's been doing a little work there.
Excellent. So, but she was right on the front lines of COVID, right before that.
Yeah, all of our healthcare professionals across the country are on the front line. They're on the front line every day,
Yeah.
But it's taken on a meeting with COVID, and they all deserve a hearty thanks and a debt of gratitude from the rest of us. They go to work every day. They're interfacing with people who are sick and contagious, and they wear their masks. They wear their masks, by the way. So,
yeah. So does Estelle, who is 4. She has a hard time with it some days, but she gets.
Real good reminder that everybody needs to be responsible and do that.
Yeah. So I didn't realize that your father was also in the service. So your family, there's a long legacy of serving. Your wife being a registered nurse, your son who's a fireman. And a deputy sheriff. Do you think that inclination kind of started with your father?
Well, my maternal grandfather immigrated to the United States from Italy, and he was a local butcher in our hometown. But he served in World War I, and then my father served in World War II, and as you point out, I served in Vietnam. But yeah, Jan's a first responder, being a nurse. My oldest son, Chris, is a first responder. He's a captain with CAL FIRE, and he's also a paramedic. And then my younger son, John, is a sergeant deputy sheriff with the Napa County Sheriff's Department.
Wow.
So lot of public service.
A lot of service. That's pretty incredible. And we talked a little bit about, your district, and it's changed. Has it changed, the boundaries of your districts has changed a little bit over time?
Yeah, if you add my time in the Senate and my time in Congress, I think I've represented every county in Northern California for some period of time, except 2 or 3. But I represented for the longest time a district that went from Napa over to the coast and up to the Oregon border. And then in the last redistricting, it was changed, went from the 7 counties that went up to the Oregon border to 5 counties that are North Bay counties.
Yeah, gorgeous, gorgeous. I really I think a lot of us miss travel, and I miss, traveling to wine country. I wouldn't call it harvested. We've harvested together, at Grace Family.
At Grace's.
Yeah. But the wonderful people that harvest and toil all the time, I wouldn't really call it harvesting our couple of hours, but it was fun. I came to wine. I'm originally from Jamaica. I grew up in Jamaica and Puerto Rico, so wine wasn't in, I feel like you were born into it, to a certain extent. I came into it from really finding wine history fascinating and working in the restaurant industry. Can you tell me a little bit about your early wine experience in Napa? Is there any of, in Italy, in the old world, they'll put a little bit of watered down wine for kids. What's the experience like, briefly, growing up in wine country with wine?
Well, you're correct. As a child, we'd get a half a glass of water with a couple drops of wine in it. But I've been around it my whole life. A lot of my friends their families were in the wine business. I told you about my grandfather. I grew up with in the same class with Chuck Wagner from Camus, David Abreu, one of the renowned vineyard managers in the valley. So I've been around it, as I say, all my life. Peter Martini and I were in the same class from Martini Winery, and the Aberzini family. Fred Aberzini was a major player in Beringer Winery, and his granddaughter Nancy and I were in the same class. I had a vineyard. I mentioned my friend Bill Bartolucci. He and I bought a piece of property from Beringer Winery when I worked at Beringer. I went to work for Beringer after I got out of the service,
Right.
and they were selling surplus property, and Bill and I bought a chunk of property from them, and we planted a Chardonnay vineyard that was down in the Napa area, and I have a vineyard now. Jan and I have 20 acres of Sauvignon Blanc that we grow in Lake County. Goes into Bonterra and Honig wine.
Yeah.
It's a very high quality Sauv Blanc vineyard. And we also planted, for aesthetic purposes, we planted about 175 olive trees. So now we're in the olive oil business as well.
Yeah.
And, so it's been a great place to grow up. Wonderful people. It's all about agriculture, and there's a big movement to this farm to table in the restaurant industry, as you know, and wine is the original farm to table. When I was a kid, people made it in their basements, and the wineries, the wineries that we know today, that are big wineries, were small wineries. My grandmother worked at Inglenook for John Daniels when he owned Inglenook. She and her sister would hand label the bottles in the labeling room. They would put a front, a back, and a neck label on all the wine that Inglenook made. So I had quite an experience growing up there. Sutter Home, a winery owned by the Trinchero family. I grew up with them, went to school with them, and now they have Trinchero and plus Sutter Home, plus Menage a Trois, and I don't know, 4 or 5 other wineries. But I remember, growing up, that you would bring your own bottle bring a 1-gallon jug into Sutter Home, and you'd say, I want to fill this up with Zinfandel or fill this up with Cabernet, and they'd go out in the back room, and out of the same barrel, they'd fill every jug and bring it back.
Right.
So the wine has come a long way, during my lifetime, and it's just a marvelous place.
Yeah. What do you do at Beringer?
I was their maintenance supervisor. I was responsible for the purchase and the maintenance of all the equipment used on the ag side of the business.
Yeah, I think a lot of people forget, that wine at its core is an agricultural product. All these beautiful glossy magazines, I think not warps it, but I think, people forget that Napa has a long history of agriculture. Was it hazelnuts, chestnuts? I mean, what was the major crops before wine? But this industry,
well, interesting. When I was a kid, there were more prune orchards than there were vineyards. We had grapes, but we also had prunes, had dairy, we had cattle. There were some walnuts. Now it's pretty much a monoculture. It's hard to find a prune tree anymore in the valley. I know. There's walnut trees still. Some people planted chestnut trees. There's one major wine operation that has a whole row. The whole roadway is lined with chestnut trees. A lot of olive trees now. Some people are making olive oil.
That's excellent. Can we talk a little bit about the wine caucus and what the caucus does? I know you've been instrumental in helping not just California wine industry, but the domestic wine industry across the country.
Yeah, I started that when I was first elected, and I started it as a way that we could hear from the wine community, and that the wine community could hear from us. So there was some coordination there. And I started it with George Radanovich, who was a colleague at the time, who owned a small winery, and George and I co-chaired that until he left, and we've had a couple of other chairs. all from California. This is the first time that we've ever expanded. We at one time we had 350 members
Wow.
of the caucus. Now we have fewer members, and it's not just a California operation.
Right.
Dan Newhouse, my colleague from Washington State, is my co-chair now. He too grows grapes, and he grows cherries, and I don't know, he's got a big ag operation. He
Yeah.
does a lot of, I think a lot maybe wheat, some sort of hay, and you're right. We're interested in wine across the country. We understand the importance wine is as an agricultural crop. We understand how important it is as an employer and as a tax revenue generator.
Yeah.
And we want to hear from the entire wine community, which is the growers, the producers, the marketers, the restaurants, everybody that has skin in the game in this. And by doing that, we can do a much better job from Congress to promote and support this very important industry.
Right. I mean, the fires. I was writing a piece the other day, and I called something the campfire, and the winery, which is in I think Russian River. They're like, no, that's actually the Tobe fire. Just to give an example of how bad it's been for the last couple of years, and then compounded with COVID. I supported a lot of smaller producers that I knew sold 80% of their wines that didn't do much retail. 80% to restaurants. Can you give me one or two things that we can do, to help support the industry?
Well, you're spot on, Nadine. A couple of things have happened recently in wine country, and that is COVID, which has really altered the way that the wine community practices their craft. So there are fewer people visiting. There's restrictions on all the facilities, how many visitors they can have. And it's made things really tough. And now this latest fire has created a huge problem. We lost a number of wineries, burnt right down to the ground.
Yeah.
And everybody was impacted. Either they had to evacuate, or we had such smoky conditions that smoke taint has affected the quality of the grapes. So if you were to drive through my district today, you would see vineyard after vineyard after vineyard that has not been picked.
Wow.
And there'll be wineries this year that they won't produce a certain variety, and they'll be, well, one of the wineries I sell my grapes to, known for their Cabernet, they said, we're just not going to make Cabernet this year.
Right.
And they don't want a chance having a smoke taint problem that tarnishes their reputation. They'll take a hit for a year rather than suffer multiple years because of a bad product. And I think that speaks highly of the wine community. My grandmother, when she used to label bottles for John Daniels, she would always talk proudly of the fact that she'd say, some years Mr. Daniels won't make a certain kind of wine because the quality of the grapes weren't good enough. And as you know, you can make bad wine with good grapes, but you can't make good wine with bad grapes. So it's an agricultural product. It starts on the vine.
Yeah.
And I think it's very laudable that the community understands this and has stuck with this commitment to quality.
Yeah. So maybe, things like joining mailing lists, buying their wines, if you're still going out, to help support. It's pretty devastating. It was really hard watching the fires, from even, I'm in DC. It was even from the first day. I remember that Sunday watching the lightning, from this last one. I was like, oh, that's really beautiful. And that's the first thing I thought. I was like, this might not help end well. But, I want to talk a little bit about the community. Yeah.
My son and I were on a father-son getaway. We were hunting when the lightning storm hit, and I didn't think a lot about it when it first started because I've lived in the Napa Valley for a long time, and I don't remember ever having lightning storms causing
Yeah,
fires. I don't remember lightning storms,
yeah.
and we woke up the next morning and left because fires had broken out from this, and so we truncated our trip and came back to this just terrible fire situation that we had. It was a bad situation.
Uh, I've run into I was talking about the fires and the need to support Napa. And I think there's a little bit of a misnomer, especially about Napa, not so much about Sonoma. This image. I'm old enough to remember Falcon Crest. You remember that show from the 80s? Just really wealthy billionaires flying in with their helicopters and like real people don't live here. And there's some of that. There's some of that in any wine region. I remember one of my first visits and driving by and seeing the high school and be like, wait, there's a high school here? But just talk a little bit about the community. I was like, no, there's Little League and, there's, people and, not just, or like, oh, it's fancy wine country, that they're all rich folks and don't need support.
Well, it's interesting. Talk about the high school. That was the high school I attended, and we were very small. I think there were 300 kids in our school. And at halftime in the varsity football games, if you look really close, when the marching band came out, in the middle of the formation, the band members still had their football pants on. So at halftime, they'd go put their band top on and get their instrument because it was that small. And you didn't have an offensive team and a defensive team. Everybody played everything. And the town has changed considerably, and there were rich people when I was growing up too, and there are rich people today. But most of St. Helena, most of the Napa Valley are regular people, people that get up in the morning and go to work, and they drive Fords and Chevys, not fancy Mercedes and BMWs. And they take their kids to Little League and to soccer and to basketball practice and games on the weekend. And they go to the store and they cook their own dinner. And they're just like you and me.
Yeah. And it's about hospitality. When I started talking about, well, have you been to wine country? And then everyone started talking about their amazing experiences and how, they visited this winery and they opened their doors to them. So it's really, really, it's really, really great. Do you personally have talk about wine? It's a little early where you are right now, so we're not having any wine right now. Do you have a particular, not a brand, but a style of wine that you particularly love? You always brought in different types of wines, but
well, sometimes my favorite wine is a Sauvignon Blanc, and other times my favorite wine is a Chardonnay, and sometimes my favorite wine is a Pinot Noir, and sometimes you get the idea.
Yeah, I do. I'm gonna use that one because I get asked that all the time. It's like, what's your favorite kid? But yeah.
And then the best way to close that is hold up the glass to whatever you're drinking and say, but right now my favorite wine is Zinfandel, But I enjoy wine with food, and I enjoy wine as an experience, and I enjoy getting an idea of what my friends are doing with their wine. So I like to drink wines that my friends make, and see how it compares to what they did last year, and how does this Cabernet work with this pasta, and how does this Pinot Noir work with this pork loin, or whatever you might be enjoying. So I just think it's an interesting way to approach it.
Yeah, I remember you always giving wine up for Lent, and we try to get you to have some wine during that.
I don't know why I do that. It's just every year I do it.
You did. No, but always.
And and every year back in the days, in the old days when we used to have public events in Washington D.C., every year during Lent, the Wine Institute or the Napa Valley Vintners Association would come out to Washington, and they'd always do a fundraiser for me.
Right.
And they'd have 5 or 6 of their members there who would all bring their best wine. And I'd sit there and enjoy my water because it was Lent. And
It's good for you. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. It was so great to see you and connect. I can't wait to have a real drink in person. I think the last when we're in Napa, I don't think she's one of Cindy's restaurants. It's not there anymore. Cindy's Backyard Kitchen, was that what it was called? Back Street. Is that still there? Is it closed?
Yes, it's there. She sold the restaurant, and they're using it as a commercial kitchen. She still has mustards. And sadly, Cindy and John lost their home in the last fire.
Oh wow.
Their home burned, and she had an incredible cookbook collection. Lost everything. They were able to get out with their dog and the clothes on their back.
Wow.
So it was tough. It's a tough go for her right now. I saw her yesterday, as a matter of fact, and it's going to be a while to get everything built back up. But Nadine, thank you for inviting me to join you, and let's make sure we get together.
Absolutely.
Let's get through COVID and have a glass of wine.
All right, and thank you for everything that you do and your entire family.
You bet.
All right.
All right. Thank you, and be safe.
All right.